Hello to everybody who's tuning in either through Parent Tween Connection Facebook group or our LinkedIn page or YouTube channel. Welcome to our next conversation as part of our January 2023 roundtable. Today, we have Judith Pinto, who's the founder of Cafe Moms, and she is super cool. She survives that frigid white north place called Canada. And we were comparing notes because her temperature is not all that different from ours here in Colorado right now. But this cold weather tends to make us feel frozen. And so today we're talking with Judith about how to get unfrozen or get unstuck. So Judith, thank you for being with me.
So glad to be here. Thank you, Claire.
Absolutely. So I also want to mention, for those of you I haven't met yet, I'm Clarissa. I'm the founder of the Parent Tween Connection. And our mission here is to connect primarily parents, but also grandparents and aunts and uncles and other family members who are supporting teens and tweens. We want to connect all those family folks to each other, but also to the professionals like Judith who can help us when moral support isn't enough. So Judith comes to us. She's one of our trusted experts, and she has a 30-year career in the mental health world. And she's worked with families specifically who have kids in their world who are neurodevelopmentally different, divergent. I don't remember exactly how you described it, but I know that you've watched a lot of families navigate really challenging stuff. And you help the parents keep the chill on.
Basically, yeah. They have to, I mean, so much of parenting kids with special needs is about being able to get unstuck and trying something new, even if you're not sure that you can or if it's going to work. And so,
Right.
Yeah. And there's a huge emotional hurdle to jump to get there. It's hard.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that, if you're raising kids with learning differences or developmental challenges, developmental delays, that the things that you're going to offer to families who navigate that world are going to apply to folks who don't have the same kinds of challenges, but have other challenges in their world, right? So walk us through. I know you said that a lot of this, we end up in this cycle of overwhelm. Can you describe that, as you see it as a practitioner, that I'm sure we're all going to relate to? By the way, anyone tuning in through our Facebook group, ask questions and I'll ask Judith for you.
There's more than just you out there.
Overwhelm.
Well, overwhelm. I mean, it's a feeling state, it's a body state, it's a mind state. So there are all kinds of bodily experiences that we have. There's all kinds of affective feeling kinds of states that we have, and we have all kinds of thoughts that we have that come with that. I can't handle it. This is too much. There's bodily tension, and we usually end up feeling sad or frustrated or anxious or worried. And those things feed off of each other, and we keep in this place of overwhelm. And usually when we have thoughts like that and our body feels frozen and our hearts feel frozen, we're really not taking action on things that we might want to take action on, that might actually be both in our best interests, that are part of what we want to be doing, but we just can't seem to be able to get off the ground. Also keeps us really distractible, like when we're in that state of overwhelm, washing the dishes instead of tackling the problem that would really get us a little bit unstuck looks way better. I think about university days when I was in places of overwhelm, I had the cleanest apartment for like a week, and then it would fall apart too. But it's a vicious cycle, and until we kind of get underneath and attend to the feeling of overwhelm, we don't get unstuck, and we can't really get traction on solving the problem.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned that we have this. If I'm trying to avoid the thing, whatever the thing is, then all of a sudden the laundry or the kitchen or reading my email or going and running errands. Oh, I need more coffee, or I'm not going to be able to make coffee tomorrow morning. Let me go to the grocery store, right? And then all these other things that is actually helping in other areas of our life. If I don't have my coffee tomorrow, things might be disastrous, right?
Yeah.
So, and we actually do have a commenter saying that, they do the same thing. Reorganizing the drawers is the go-to. So, I mean, we can sit here and we can rationalize, but look how pretty my kitchen looks, because I can now walk into my kitchen and breathe, because that's not overwhelming me. So there's some value to that.
There absolutely can be. And sometimes though it can get stuck in, if I just take care of all of those external things, it'll somehow get better. And I'll eventually get to the thing that's the most important and the most, not necessarily urgent, but that is probably the most important thing for me to do.
Right.
And sometimes not actually attending to the actual state of overwhelm that exists in us makes other things worse. So, that experience, I mean, I haven't, worked in a place where I've had team meetings in some time. These days, it's my husband and I meet for coffee. It's like, that's our team meeting.
Yeah.
But going into a room where they're already in the middle of something and you have this tension that you feel like you need a chainsaw to cut through it. We have that experience. And if we don't address that experience, you're not safe to talk. You're not safe to really share because you're not sure what's going on there. And
Right.
so much of what we carry with us in our state of overwhelm affect other people, which means affect other relationships and how things go the rest of our day. So if that's a conversation with a client, if that's a conversation with our boss, if that's a conversation with our spouse or our children or friends, they can pick up that vibe. And biologically, we're wired to pick up that. My dog can pick up that vibe.
Oh,
And
absolutely they
it's
can.
kind of like, do I need to come and like kiss you, or do I just need to kind of curl up and be like a little extra quiet right now?
Or just like
Because
walk
we're gonna do
away.
that. Yeah, yeah. I'm not going to ask for a treat right now. This is not going to be a good time.
Right.
Or I'm going to try anyways, just to see if I can shake you out of it.
Right.
So if that place of overwhelm that we carry with us shows up on our face, in our voice, in just subtle gestures that we're making, and we communicate so much of that to other people, and that can actually increase the problem because now they're a little on edge around us
Absolutely.
and aren't
Yeah.
sure how to interact. And now we're in a stuck relationship sometimes. So it can have compounding effects if we don't do that really deep self-care to address it for
So
ourselves.
talk to me about that deep self-care, what you call emotion tending.
I call emotion tending, and I look at it in kind of a three-phase thing. There's that great, it's become a meme, I guess, like keep calm and carry on, right?
Mhm.
Queen Elizabeth's, which is great, but sometimes there's no calm to keep.
Mm-mm.
So we have to start by getting calm
Mhm.
so that we can actually stop and think. And then we need to actually stay calm through whatever it is we need to actually tackle. And the thing that we need to tackle first is that feeling of overwhelm. And I'm really using the word feeling intentionally because
Okay.
it's a state that we have here.
Mhm.
Whatever's going on around us, we can tackle it easier if we can approach it from this calm, alert place. So not
Mhm.
so calm that we're ready for an up, not so alert that we're, heading for a roller coaster, but that just right sweet spot where we're
That
calm enough,
neutral
we're alert enough,
almost.
and we're feeling safe. Because overwhelm is the opposite of feeling safe. Overwhelm is, I can't handle it. This
Mhm.
is awful. It You get stuck in black and white kinds of thinking. We get stuck
Mhm.
in inaction, as
Mhm.
opposed to I'm curious and I'm ready to take action on something small.
Right?
And so the third step to that, once we've gotten calm, stayed calm, is to actually dig into that emotion, whether that's in our body, whether that's in our thoughts, or whether we're better at listening to it in our hearts, to pay attention to it and to
Mhm.
step in and work with it.
So you just put it in an interesting perspective of like whether I feel it in my body or whether I like recognize it in my thoughts, right? So
Mhm,
what are some, I guess if we kind of circle back to the getting calm,
mhm.
when I'm in the space of overwhelm, what's that meme? Tell her to get calm because it's always worked before, right? Like, never in the
Yes.
history of ever has a husband won an argument with a wife by saying, calm down, right?
Yeah,
If anything, that simply fuels the fire.
yeah.
So, when I'm in that space, what do I do to get calm?
Well, one of the first things that you can do is start to actually notice that you aren't calm, right? And so becoming aware of that is
Mhm.
really the precursor because I don't know to take action on that unless I know to take action on it, but I need
Right.
to. Part of that can also be developing a practice that's kind of what I call micro meditations almost, but a gratitude practice, noticing your breath, stepping into a positive memory or something that evokes a state of gratitude for you, something that allows you to shift in this moment. Because, like there's that expression, I think Tara Brach uses it. Our brains are Velcro for pain and Teflon for pleasure. And so I'm in this moment and I'm feeling stressed. I'm going to hold on to it because it's going to be like Velcro. So how do I kind of let go of that? Well,
Right.
one of the things that is also true in this moment is that I am safe, and that whatever kinds of memories I might be holding on to that are painful or stressful, I also have memories that are joyful and positive and evoke feelings that are not stressful. So to actually look at those things is equally true as looking at the things that are like the sky is falling. So to actually shift from that state of I am not safe to actually I'm safe right now, because these other experiences are also true in my life. So to actually be in that place of safety evokes curiosity, calm, centeredness, focus, at least in this moment, and then staying there.
And recognizing it is the first step, right? Like,
Yes.
I know I've had conversations with folks who were like, it was almost like I had an out of body experience and I watched myself lose my mind. I watched my head explode and I felt like a hapless bystander because there just wasn't anything that I could do to stop the projectile, whatever came out my mouth at the person that I was frustrated with, or whatever the case may be. And then they beat themselves up for the fact that they noticed it and felt like they were just completely powerless to change it in the moment. And I kind of feel like at least noticing it is a win if you haven't noticed it before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that doing, finding a practice that helps you shift your attention and your intention to experiences of I am safe. If you can engage in that practice on a regular basis throughout the day. So I'm not suggesting that you have to sit on your cushion for 20 minutes and, let your mind go blank, because that's too big an ask for most people when you're in that place of overwhelm. But to be able to just in the moment shift, and the next time you notice, in the moment shift, or even before you notice, just plan for in the moment shift, to kind of create a different pathway in your brain, so that it's like, every time I walk through my world, I don't only think negative things and remember negative things and feel my heart race and feel my muscles tighten and think, oh, this day, will it ever end? I can actually have thoughts that are positive and that feel good and connect me to other people who care about me.
Right. Well, and I like your concept of micro meditation and the idea that we can do it periodically throughout the day. There's a reason, I guess that falls into the category of mindfulness, right? Like the broad spectrum.
Yeah, in the broad sense. Yeah.
Right. In a broad sense. And they say mindfulness is a practice. It's not something that you can just bada bing, turn on and make it a thing. It takes those little micro moments along the way to get there. So, all right. So get calm, staying calm. Anything you want to add about the staying calm?
Staying calm. I think staying calm really does involve having some intention to plan ahead. To go, I know that something hard is going to come up. Okay. And the best way for me to stay calm through that, so that I have access to my curiosity, my creativity, my best self, so that I show up where my ideas, the things that I put out, my body language, the tone of voice, all of it puts into the world what it is I want to put into the world in that moment. So often that staying calm when it counts, that can be about, having that tough conversation with your boss, your spouse, your child, your friend, or doing something that you're just, I am not looking forward to doing, taxes. Mind you, some accountant probably does like doing their taxes, but not my favorite thing. I need to get, before I sit down to do something that's hard, into a place where I can stay there. And I have a plan for what gets me there, whether that's something physical, whether that's something meditation oriented, whether that's something that's an activity like talking to a friend and getting into a good headspace. And once I'm there, to be able to then hold that and step into what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So staying calm is one of those things. And if working with your emotions right after that, because you're in the state of overwhelm, knowing that you can actually hold that to
Right.
then do the homework.
Well, and so then that was going to be my next question is, as we dig
Mm.
in, what do you mean? Like, what are some of the ways that you see people successfully work through their emotions? You mentioned in the heart and the body and in the mind, but like,
Yeah.
what does that actually look like for
Right.
different types of people?
Well, I am not as oriented to the way my body feels as a cue to my emotions. So I'm more able to pay attention to my thoughts and go, oh, these thoughts are
Uh-huh.
about this emotion. And here's what it means. But other people aren't necessarily cueing into their thoughts. They're noticing that their bodies feel a certain way. And so learning
Okay.
what to look for in your cues, whether it's sort of just a heart sense, whether it's a body sense, or whether it's the mind going off and doing what it does when it gets overwhelmed, which is thinking
Mm-hmm.
awful things. So being able to tune into which is your best alarm system and what do
Okay.
you lean
I
into,
like that.
and then being able to look at that, give it a name, because when there's that kind of axiom, name it to tame it, right? When you
Mm-hmm.
give an emotion a name and go, okay, I'm feeling sad. Now you know, okay, what's the definition of sad? Sad happens when something's happened that you've lost something. It's a grief kind of thing. What am I grieving? What am I feeling
Mm-hmm.
sad about? And
Mm-hmm.
actually get to that underpinning of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can look at it and you can go, okay, well, you know, is it true? Have I lost something?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a loss? What do I do with that? Would
Mm-hmm.
anybody else feel that way? To actually step in and validate and empathize with your own
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that requires too, like really knowing that emotions are safe.
Right.
Because if you're afraid of it, you're not going to step into it.
And
And
that's,
and
I
I
was going to
know
say, that's a challenge for a lot of people because I know many of us were
it
taught,
absolutely is.
emotions are not safe. We've got, I mean, let's
Yeah.
talk, we're going to gender the conversation. If we take a look at some of the
Yeah.
toxic masculinity that exists, right? Oh, rub some dirt on it. There's no crying in baseball, or, you're a bloppity bloppity blah if you cry kind of business, right? But it's
Yeah.
not like girls are taught that emotions are any safer. We get called all kinds of terms when we lose our minds or we
Yeah.
get emotional, so we don't have a culture that supports emotional safety.
No, but we also don't have the lived experience of having often. I'm not going to say that's completely true for everybody, but most of us have not been parented by people who were parented to feel emotions were safe. And so this probably goes
Correct.
back generations. And so we step
Absolutely.
in, and the only emotion that might be safe for a man to express is anger and frustration. And
Mhm.
for women, maybe sadness.
Mhm.
But keep it boxed in, not too
Mhm.
erratic, not too
Yeah,
irrational, right?
absolutely.
Because big girls don't cry either, just like
Mhm.
boys don't cry.
Mhm.
So we get stuck in these places where we're taught emotions aren't safe. Now, if I think about when my father worked night shifts, it wasn't okay to be too loud when you were happy either. And so, keep that down.
Oh, right,
And for
because dad
some,
needed to sleep.
sleeping. Yeah, he needs to sleep in the day. And just because you're home
Mhm.
from school doesn't mean that this is, business as usual. So
Mhm.
you get messages sometimes explicitly and sometimes implicitly. It may not have meant don't be happy, but it's kind of like, oh, okay,
Right.
happiness and the expression of happiness, because that's how emotions show up, is that we express them either in our thoughts, in our words, or in our deeds, right?
Interactions,
We
right.
see them and we hear them in our own minds. But if we get those messages over and over again, and
Mhm.
frankly, some families aren't okay with happy. It's kind of almost like you're inviting problems if you put out into the world that you're happy. Bad
Mhm.
things will happen.
Right.
Those
Oh, for sure.
superstitions, right?
Yeah.
So we're not necessarily trained to think that emotions are safe.
Mhm.
So you have to
Mhm.
start with accepting that maybe, just maybe, they are.
Right.
Getting
Well,
familiar with which ones are safe for you and starting with those because they might be the easiest to work with.
and that goes back to what you were saying earlier, is like if we're in that space of overwhelm to begin with, the overwhelm is a feeling of a lack of safety. And you were commenting about shifting from not safe to safe. And one of our commenters made the comment that, like, hey, that shift can be really, really monstrous to make. But those, just as you were saying, when you're in that space of unsafety or versus safety and taking those micro steps to get a little bit closer, maybe not all the way to safety, but I'm more safe, something like that. I think the same thing can circle back here in emotional safety. Like, maybe we can't go from not okay to okay overnight, but like you said, that's black and white thinking. It's going, okay, maybe I can find a coach like you, right? Or a therapist, if a therapist is appropriate, or just a friend who's had something similar where I can share just this next little bit, like Shrek says, like this next layer of the onion of the ogre, right? Where I can offer myself safe opportunities where I can become more safe. So, okay. So we're going to take 2 more steps. I'm going to ask Judith in just a moment what her favorite foundation of connection is. Back on that in a second. But then we're also going to continue our conversation exclusively for members of Parent Tween Village. We're going to dig into some more specifics. And I think what I'm going to ask Judith to do, I'm going to ask her this on the fly, is to help us a bit with that planning. Give us some examples of some plans that folks have implemented so that once they recognize it, and they've done that micro meditation, what are the actual steps that we can take or that we can lay out for ourselves? What do you think, Judith? Does that work?
Sounds good.
Okay. So for those of you who are not familiar with our foundations of connection, these are the underpinnings of everything that we do at Parent Tween Connection. These were the outgrowth of a conversation that I had with myself several years ago when I started thinking about why the students that I've worked with for the last 2+ decades feel more comfortable talking to me about some things than they do talking to their own parents, or maybe they're just not ready to talk to mom and dad yet. So the first letter of each of these phrases spells out the word connection. And I love to ask our guests which one, and I think based on our conversation today, you're going to be like, oh, there's a few, but which one really kind of stands out for you the most? So here we go. Create a safe place, observe, non-judgment, nod and smile, as in zip it, explore, challenge your truths or curiosity, take your time, innovate, own your own story, and nurture. So we've used some of these words already today. So I'm just curious, like, if you had to pick one, what's popping hot for you?
You know, when you said create a safe space, because that's so fundamental. And I know that your work is working, well, the community is parents of children who are between teens and tweens.
Yeah.
And in order to have that relationship, because you've got quite a few relationship coaches that work with Parent Tween Connection, in order to have that relationship and the tools that help build good communication, the safe space comes first. And that starts with what we do for ourselves as parents, which is deep self-care.
Which comes back to emotion tending. We need to be able to tend our own situations in order to really tend others. It's that emotional life mask.
Yeah.
So awesome. All right, Judith, your website is cafemoms.co. Right? I remembered that correctly. Okay. So if any of you are listening in and you like what you hear and you would like to get some more insight about how she approaches and supports families, cafemoms.co. You can also find her on parentweenconnection.com as one of our trusted experts. And I am thrilled to have you.
I'm thrilled to be here.
So thanks so much, Judith. And I will see you over in Parent Tween Village in just a couple minutes.
Sounds good.
Bye, everybody.